Hi, everybody. Welcome to part 3 of the ICC First Look series that we've been doing. Today, we're going to be doing Valithria Dreamwalker, Sindragosa, and Big Daddy Lich King himself. These 3 fights are all pretty unique, and the Lich King especially is probably considered the hardest fight that we will have faced up to this point. Valithria Dreamwalker is the first of the bosses. Definitely a very interesting boss in that you need to heal up the dragon in order to wake her up, and then she will stop the ass response.
My
Here we
name
go.
is Ellie, and in this video, I'll cover everything you need to know about the normal mode.
Also, reminder, we are doing normal modes on here. There are heroic mode guides, but we don't know any of the mechanics, so we're going to talk about normal mode. And then at the end of each normal mode guide, we're just going to go and look at what the heroic mechanics are and see what the differences are.
25-minute version of the Valithria Dreamwalker encounter. Whoever said healers were merely raid support? This fight is all about us healers, and for once, the tanks and the DPS build a support team. As soon as you enter a room, you can see Valithria lying in the middle of it, clearly hurt and bound by the archmages surrounding her. As healer, your task is to bring her health back to full while the tanks and DPS deal with the waves of adds that spawn during the encounter.
Better?
Their goal is to absolutely minimize raid damage to give the healers the most amount of time to actually heal the boss and hence end the encounter quickly. The more raid damage is taken, the slower the encounter will be. Makes sense, right?
Makes sense, right? Okay, so if I'm not mistaken, you're not going to have a disc priest for this fight. Your disc priest will very likely go holy, because obviously you're not going to powered shield the dragon to 100%. So you're going to have your disc go holy, and then you're going to probably flex up healers in order to more quickly heal the boss to full. Whereas you might normally use 5 healers, you might flex up to 6 or 7. Your Boomy might go resto or just have the disc healer raid. Well, we'll see exactly, but from my understanding that's one strategy, is having your disc go holy. Maybe your ret goes holy.
Valithria starts out at 50% health, which puts her at 18 million and leaves you with another 18 million to heal. A setup of 2 tanks, however little DPS you can get away with to get the job done, and as many healers as possible is recommended. In our case, we just had 6 healers, so the fight took a while.
Lose 3% damage. Maybe a mage goes arcane.
There are 5 different types of adds that spawn that I'll list in order of importance. Blazing Skeletons, Suppressors, Risen Archmages, Blistering Zombies, and Gluttonous Abominations. Blazing Skeletons cast a raid-wide AoE called Lay Waste, and that's pretty much exactly what it does, not to mention it also damages Valithria, so these need to be killed ASAP. Suppressors basically just run up to Valithria and channel a spell that makes her take 10% less healing per suppressor channeling. They have low health, so they should be taken out quickly as long as no Blazing Skeleton is up. Risen Archmages annoy the raid with mana-draining Void Zones.
Okay, so ultimately this fight is just a bunch of ad waves that do different stuff while your healers are healing and keeping the rate up. Let's look exactly at what all the ads do. Valithria Dreamwalker. So here are the different ads. Valithria summons a nightmare portal to allow players access to the dream state where dream clouds spawn. 8 portals each time on 25 minutes. Emerald Vigor, regenerating 200 mana every 3. Increases damage done by 10%. Increases healing done by 10%. Cast when a dream cloud is killed in Valithria's dream state. Dreamwalker's Rage deals a gajillion nature damage to all surrounding enemies. 3-second cast. Cast after reaching full health will not hit players. Okay, so that's the end state of the fight. So you want to stack Emerald Vigor when you're in the portals. Okay, so then the Blazing Skeletons do Fireball and Lay Waste. Surround the caster in flames for 12 seconds, pulsing damage to all enemies every 2 seconds, instant 50,000 yards. Okay, so this is kind of a gnarly thing. We'll bring your bandages. Yeah, I don't think bandages are going to do all that much in the long run. So blistering skeletons seem kind of spooky with lay waste. Blistering zombie acid burst, they explode, dealing a lot of nature damage and more every second within 15 seconds for 20 seconds. And then they have corrosion. Whenever the caster lands a melee swing, the target takes 2,000 nature damage every 3 seconds and their armor is reduced by 10%. So this is like a tank swap mechanic. Okay. Last 6 seconds, that's not so bad. And then Risen Archmage. Oh, there's a bunch of these things. Marks the location under a random player. After 2 seconds, a column of frost erupts from this location. Okay, so just move out of this. Not a big deal. Frostbolt Volley. I think you probably just have to heal this, but it can be interrupted as well as dispelled. And then Mana Void. Summons a Mana Void at a random enemy's location. This Mana Void burns 800 mana per second to all enemies within 6 yards. Last 30 seconds, so move away. Hunter kites the zombies. Okay, so that you don't have to stack the armor debuff. I gotcha. And then Gluttonous Abomination Gut Spray deals damage per second and increases physical damage taken by 25% for 12 seconds. Instant disease. 10,000 nature damage, initial blast, more on heroic. It's removable. And then they spawn worms when the A-bomb dies. And then the suppressors reduce healing received by the target by 10%. This is important to avoid. All right, so now let's get back to the fight now that we kind of have a sense of all the things.
Of importance. Blazing skeletons, suppressors, risen archmages, blistering zombies, and gluttonous abominations. Blazing skeletons cast a rate-wide AoE called Lay Waste, and that's pretty much exactly what it does. Not to mention it also damages Valithria, so these need to be killed ASAP.
Okay, so kill the blazing skeletons are the prio. You're the risen archmages.
Suppressors basically just run up to Valithria and channel a spell that makes her take 10% less healing per suppressor channeling. They have low health, so they should be taken out quickly as long as no blazing skeleton is up.
So she's
Risen
trying
Archmages
to
annoy raid with
soak
mana-draining
these
void zones, a 10k Frostbolt AoE,
things for
and
that
Frost
extra
Pillars,
buff.
but they don't have any deadly AoE like the skeletons do. Still, they are high on the kill list to avoid additional raid damage.
Seems like a short fight. They're healing pretty hard.
Blistering Zombies cast Acid Burst, which is a 10k
Aura Mastery Crusader Aura will increase movement speed and flying around that face. Is that true, Devin? That's crazy.
AoE in a 15-yard area, and it also makes everyone that got hit by it take a small 20-second dot. They also greatly increase the damage your tanks take. The Abominations have a lot of health, but don't really do anything menacing at all. They just spawn a couple worms up in death, so have your tank pick them up.
Okay. A-bombs are no big deal. It sounds like it's the blazing skeletons and the suppressors that are the big problem.
Position a DPS team on the east and west side that takes care of whatever spawns in an order similar to the one proposed above, while your healers are free to spread out around the inner circle of the room. If executed correctly, raid damage should be low, giving healers a lot of time to spam heal Valithria. Frequently, Valithria will summon about 10 nightmare portals in random locations around her inner circle. They will show up as little green seeds before becoming clickable. And upon clicking one, you will be teleported to the Emerald Dream where you can freely float about the room to pick up nightmare clouds. When touching a nightmare cloud, it erupts, giving you a stack of Emerald Vigor, a buff that increases your healing and damage done by 10%, as well as regenerates 200 mana every 3 seconds per stack.
So is there a reason that she didn't go take a portal? Because I feel like she should have taken a portal to get the buff when the bunch of them spawn. She's just standing there.
The more clouds you pick up, the higher your stacks and the bigger your buff. Unless you're going for an achievement, only healers should be taking portals. You don't want all of your healers phased out at the same time though, so make sure to assign an order if this is a problem for you.
Don't want all your healers going in at once. Okay, that's fair. They're the portals.
Portal assignments can be done different ways. You can assign your highest single target HPS classes to take every single one and stack up the buff while other people only take one if mana is low, or you can simply alternate, so have your healers take the first set, the other half the second, and go from there. Or you can just have people take portals if mana is an issue. The most effective way is probably the first one, but this—
So that was the blazing skeleton thing right here.
Have your healers take the first set, the other half the second, and go from there.
This has got to die.
Or you can just have people take portals if mana is an issue.
Yeah, the raid gets fucked by that.
The most effective way is probably the first one, but this would take some math.
This will take some math. You know what that means, guys. We're gonna be doing math.
Either way, taking a portal will fill up the mana pool and give a nice healing buff. Abilities such as Guardian Spirit and Lay on Hands do work on Valithria and will provide a nice minor buff, so go ahead and use them whenever available.
So you want to save Lay on Hands for the boss. Guardian Spirit's an easy add.
As far as healing strategy behind this, you want to utilize your biggest, most efficient single target heals, which means paladins are going to absolutely love this fight. Druids cycle full hearts, then nourish, and for priests I would recommend, I didn't think I'd ever say this, a greater heal spec featuring Divine Fury, improved healing, serendipity, and empowered healing.
I didn't think I'd ever say this. What is she implying? She's specking out a flash? I feel like that's all she's
comfortable with is going to get the job done though, so until her heroic version is out, respecking is not needed. Have fun and good luck.
Yeah, maybe we just sit and do some HPS tests. Okay, so it seems the goal is to manage the ads and then have your healers that are assigned to get the HPS increasing buff to stack it over and over and over again so that it doesn't fall off and their HPS goes through the roof after some time. And then once you're fast enough, you're done. Your fifth healer, your Boomy, that's been Boomy for all of TUGC, is going tree for this fight. We'll have figured out exactly what is the optimal number of healers. You can kill yourself if you take too many stacks. Does it have a negative effect on it? The Frostbolt Volley cast by Risen Archmage now burns mana. Okay. So you got to interrupt it. That's easy. Valithria's health decays over time while she still starts at half health and remains at the same max health as normal. The decay means more healing is needed. Okay. Blistering zombies run faster than normal. Fine. Instead of opening portals into the dream, portals instead open into the nightmare. Valithria does not announce the portal's opening. Players take damage while inside the nightmare, and the orbs also apply a dot in addition to their usual effects, and orbs do not respawn. So yeah, you can't take too many on heroic, so we're gonna have to figure out exactly how many you can take before you get overwhelmed with the dot. It's kind of like redlining. You don't want to just go too fast, but you know, it'll be interesting how we sort it. There's going to be a lot of min-maxing. This might be one of those fights that Warcraft Logs doesn't track. If I had to guess, they don't love the weird fights. Okay, so class-specific picks. Feral Druids are good against the suppressors with Swipe. Paladins are good for A-bombs, as Consecration helps gather up worms. Sure. Crusader Aura works inside the dream, increasing movement speed. That's cool. Shaman with a Cleansing Totem can be useful for the A-bomb tank. Death Knights are good for taking Archmages. Mages should place Amp Magic on Valithria, easy. Frost Mages with a non-rooting, slowing Blizzard can use it to kite and help kill rotworms. I think that's probably not going to be a problem. Hunters are useful against the zombies as they can distracting shot to make sure the zombie initially heads toward the hunter and then gain aggro normally through regular attacks as well as frost traps and conch shot. Any class has a heal should heal Valithria whenever there's a break in the action for them. Every little bit helps. Even bandaging helps. Also, these classes should patch themselves up whenever possible to reduce the strain on the healer. Sure. This will be a fun fight as a healer. I'm excited. It'll be interesting to see the meta, how it shakes out long term. It'll change the alternate spec that a lot of players bring because a lot of DPS don't really use their second spec normally. And so it kind of incentivizes more healing, less like tanking spec or whatever. Ret goes holy, Disc goes holy, probably. All right. That's Valithria. Valithria is one of two bosses in the Frostwing. She is probably the most unique fight in here outside of maybe Gunship. The next boss is Sindragosa. Sindragosa is probably the second or third hardest fight in here. It's also one of the fights that you need to infuse your Shadowmourne with. So get your tank specs ready or your tank gear ready if you're one of those classes that needs to get breathed on because it's minty. Frost resist gear might be a good idea. We'll see. It's hard to know exactly. Icebane's easy to craft at the moment. Cheap. I'm not sure it's going to be necessary. I think for warriors, some people are saying that the tier 8 4-piece is really good for the Shadowmourne Soak, but that's what I've been reading. So, Sindragosa. Probably the second to last fight that you're going to do in here before the Lich King. Icebane Boots, Elixir Ring, Helm, Cloak Enchant, and Resist Flask. Yeah, sure. You might also just do it on normal. If you do it on normal, it's probably a lot easier. You craft the blacksmithing items, the frost resist for the quest? Sure. Okay.
I'm Splug, and in this video I'll be going over our strategy for the 25-player Sindragosa encounter. Also, be sure to subscribe by clicking the subscribe button to the right, so you'll be automatically notified as we release movies.
There's a lot of trash in this room that you have to kill. There's 2 packs of whelps and a guy on the left and the right, and then there's 2 big frost worms here and here that you have to kill, and then she lands. She's off in the distance over here.
Similar to Putricide and Lanithel, Sindragosa is a limited attempt encounter who shares attempts with the other Endwing bosses. Sindragosa is a 3-phase encounter. The first 2 phases alternate periodically until phase 3 begins at 35% health. She will land and engage the raid as soon as the second Frostworm trash boss is killed.
Oh yeah, there's a gauntlet. The gauntlet is really annoying. It's kind of dumb. I don't love the gauntlet, personally. There's a lot of spiders. But if you're farming souls for your Shadowmourne, it might not be the worst idea.
Sindragosa's phase 1 abilities are fairly straightforward. She has all the staple dragon attacks, a cleave, a tail smash, and a breath attack. The front and back of the dragon are, as a result, ill-advised gathering locations for those pursuing a career in healing or damage dealing. Similar to Saffron, Sindragosa also generates an aura of minor frost damage, which cannot be avoided in any way during phase 1.
Alright, blistering cold. Get out.
Sindragosa has 2 debuffs which must be managed on a player-by-player level. The first is Chilled to the Bone, which has a 20% chance to be applied by physical attacks against the dragon. The debuff deals 1000 frost damage every 2 seconds, lasts 8 seconds, and can stack with itself.
What?
Melee hunters and tanks will have to throttle their attacks to prevent the debuff from stacking over about 5. The second debuff used
so anytime you attack the dragon, you have a chance to apply a dot on you?
is Unchained Magic, which the debuff deals 1000 frost damage every 2 seconds, lasts 8 seconds, and can stack with itself. Melee hunters and tanks will have to throttle their attacks to prevent the debuff from stacking over about 5.
Okay, so as you attack, you have a chance for it to proc on you or not. And then if it starts to stack up, you have to stop and let it reset. So there might be some like really toxic RNG parses where it just like never applies to you. Or someone's like, I don't want to move and stop. Kind of like Hodier, where it's like, I'm not going to move because I need to do damn and I'm going to stack all this shit and then the healers will heal me. And if you didn't heal me, fuck you. I have a feeling that'll be a lot of what's happening, but whatever.
The second debuff used is Unchained Magic, which stacks up an arcane instability effect every time the afflicted player completes a cast. 8 seconds after the last spell is cast, the instability will deal 2000 damage per spell cast. Healers and casting damage will need to allow the backlash damage to occur at around 7 or 8 stacks, though damage reduction such as dispersion can be used to inflate the survivable damage.
So every time you cast, you get a stack of something that pops on you after 8 seconds, right? So you can't let it stack too high because at some point you're not going to be casting.
Healers and spell the effect every time the afflicted player completes a cast. 8 seconds after the last spell is cast, the instability will deal 2000 damage per spell cast. Healers and casting damage will need to allow the backlash damage to occur at around 7 or 8 stacks, though damage reduction such as dispersion can be used to inflate the survivable damage. Longer spellcasts, such as arcane missiles, can also be used to fill space with a lower loss in damage.
But couldn't you just cast stuff that's not an attack? Oh, because you have to attack her for it to stack a new one. And when she flies up, you're not attacking her. So you have to, at some point, deal with it. That makes sense. It's on all casts, including heals. Let me read the thing. So then why can't you just constantly be casting and then just never letting it pop? I don't understand. You get one shot if you're in the ice cube. Well, that's fair. And she targets 5 people with the ice cube? So Unchained Magic inflicts an arcane malediction on the target, causing any spell cast to result in a backlash of arcane power after 5 seconds. Multiple spellcasts by the afflicted target will intensify the backlash. Using magic while afflicted with Unchained Magic will build up unstable energy, dealing more arcane damage to the caster per spell cast. 5 seconds after spellcasting ends, instant cast stacks 99 times. AoE damage if too many stack up and you wipe the raid. Oh, it applies and then pops? It doesn't reset? So it's constantly just rolling damage? Oh, okay. So you get this on you, and while this is on you, you stack instability. But this eventually will fall off, and then you're fucked if you have stacked this too high. Okay, so then you have to deal with it because it's gonna fall off at some point once this is on you. I thought it was just like the melee one where as long as you're hitting her, you're getting stacks. I see. Okay, that makes sense. And it does damage on heroic, I guess, to everyone around you. Unchained Magic's backlash not only hits the player, but everyone else. Okay.
The only other skills used in Phase 1 are Icy Grip and Blistering Cold. These are used together to summon the raid to her, then begin a 5-second cast which will deal heavy damage to all players within 25 yards. This is easily handled by simply running toward the stairs after being pulled into Sindragosa. Shortly after Blistering Cold completes its cast, Sindragosa will fly into the air and begin Phase 2. Due to the Ice Tomb mechanic there, any players who have Unchained Magic should avoid
So there she's yoinking everybody.
casting at all after the Blistering
Then
Cold.
she does Blistering Cold, so everybody runs
Backlash
out.
damage combined with an Ice Tomb can lead to a death which will be difficult to prevent.
So there's going to be a great Foji week aura that tells you how far you have to run, and it'll be a red bar, and then once you've run far enough, it'll be green, and you'll be fine, you'll stop.
The Sindragosa air phase is very reminiscent of Saffron's air phase. 5 players will be marked to be imprisoned in ice tombs. They will have roughly 8 seconds to find a position clear of the
Okay, so you're marked with ice tombs. How do you know if you're marked?
raid and each other. If they are too close to an unmarked raid member, then the
Frost beacon. You have a blue arrow over your head.
non-marked player will be frozen as well. If they are too close to each other, then splash damage from being frozen will kill the ice tomb players outright.
Gotcha. This is a very retail mechanic. Get away from everybody, you know what I mean? Like, they do a lot of this type of stuff in retail now. But usually it's the entire raid and not just 5 people.
After the ice tombs have been cast, Sindragosa will cast 4 frost bombs one at a time at a random location on the platform. The destinations for the bombs are marked with a white swirling graphic. Any player standing in the line of sight from the frost bomb when it detonates will take roughly 25,000 frost damage, which while survivable can be easily avoided by staying behind an ice tomb.
Okay, so you need to kill the ice blocks, but you don't want to kill them necessarily while the bombs are landing, because then you lose your cover. So they're killing 2 in the back. That between frost bombs, they're moving to another one and they're getting it low. And then as soon as she's ready to land, they pop all of them. That's cool. That's fun. Someone's going to fuck up and kill it too early because they're zugging too hard.
Unlike the Saffron encounter, ice tombs will not fade on their own. Each tomb has 450,000 health, which the raid will need to burn through to free the victim.
Isn't it 5 ice blocks, Niche? Or is it 6?
When the 4th frost bomb lands, players still within ice tombs will begin to suffocate, losing a percentage of their health each second. They will need to be freed quickly after
It's 6 in a row,
Sindragosa
okay.
lands. Before the encounter, we used flares to arrange the specific points tombed players will stand on during Phase 2. The formation of 3 tombs in front and 2 in back was chosen to simplify.
So that makes sense. You'll do 3 and 3, and so there'll be a line of 3 closer to the boss, and then a line of 3 further from the boss, and everybody will stand behind the line of 3 further from the boss, and they'll attack those. And then once that line is dead during the frost bombs dropping, they'll start moving towards the front one, start attacking it, and then as soon as the frost bomb phase ends, you just double stack and get 3 in total. Don't they do splash damage to anybody around you? Like, will you survive getting hit by 2? It won't kill you if you're in pairs. 2 stacks and you can live. Do you guys know this because it's got the 30% buff? Or is this the 0% buff? You need to not think about ICC at 30%. You need to think about it at 0%. And 30% is a lot of HP. So think about it. Sure, you could use AM Frost and stuff there. Maybe that'll do a lot. 0% with cooldowns. Okay, so then you AM Frost and D-Sack it maybe, and then you could do back and forth. Okay, interesting little mechanic. Yeah, Reggie, Enhancement Shamans love to die. You just powered shield all 6 people if you have time, and then you call for an AM Frost D-Sack. It's probably fine to do it in pairs. I don't know the actual value, but that's a lot of damage mitigation if you can do double cooldown plus powered shields. Well, all right, let's continue.
Simplify the damage priority of killing.
I mean, that's all phase 1 and 2, right? That's not too difficult. There's a lot going on, but that's not too difficult. There's the melee debuff. There's the caster debuff. There's the air phase with the frost tombs. There's the yoink in the center and running out. 16k frost damage when hit. So then it would be 32k. 20% of 32k is 6.5. Plus an AM frost might be like 50% mid. You'd get hit pretty hard.
Ice tombs, and the location near the stairs was chosen as Sindragosa does not cast frost bombs on the staircase. In this way, we
Well,
are
if you're
able to
AM
focus
frosting,
burn down
Reggie.
the back 2 ice tombs, while still using the front 3 to block line of sight on frost bombs. Splash damage while killing the back 2 tombs also left the front 3 at a reasonably low health, to allow us to free the last 3 players quickly. The ground and air phases alternate until Sindragosa's health drops to 35%.
Alright, so we're at
At this
35.
point, phase 3 will begin.
Here's phase 3.
From here on, Shoot will no longer fly into the air, and all the mechanics from phase 1 will persist.
Is Oni tank ring good for this? We are making sure that our tanks have the Oni tank ring for this. I can't tell you whether or not it's going to be worth JoJo, but we're making sure that our tanks have it. We're doing splits with our Oni and it's fucking annoying, but we are doing it. Up to you whether or not you think it's worth. I'm sure it's doable without, but it might be a nice little bit of mitt.
Additionally, Sindragosa will begin to emit an arcane buff at every 6 seconds. This debuff increases magic damage taken.
Okay, wait, let's go back to the phase transition. The combo I mentioned earlier gets you exactly to 30% minimum resist roll. What combo niche? AM Frost? Niche is like big brain on ICC, guys, by the way. Let's go back to 35%. We can talk about the resist thing here in a second. Okay. So this is definitely also, just like Saffron was for speedruns, skipping air phases for speedruns is going to be the name of the game. So you're going to burn your cooldowns early so that you can skip the no DPS air phases. Res Flask, Helm, Cloak Enchant, Oni Ring, and Crafted Boots. Okay.
The ground and air phases alternate until
so here's
Sindragosa's
35.
health drops to 35%. At this point, phase 3 will begin.
Sindragosa fires a frozen orbs towards Meladin. So then, or Melkadin. So they're going to probably, you can see the mark here. They're going to run out.
From here on, Shoot
Here he
will no
comes,
longer
because
fly
he doesn't
into
want to be near
the
anybody
air,
when
and
it pops.
all the mechanics from phase 1 will persist.
There's the frozen orb.
Sindragosa
It
will
froze
begin to
him.
emit an arcane buff at every 6 seconds. This debuff increases magic damage taken by 10%, lasts 8 seconds, and stacks with itself. It is applied to everyone within line of sight of Sindragosa.
He died.
Sindragosa will also summon an Ice Tomb on a single player about every 15 seconds. The effect is exactly the same as in Phase 2, providing a block of ice which can be used to block line of sight to Sindragosa and can be destroyed by sufficient damage. Remember that players within 10 yards of the marked player will also be frozen.
Why would you want to block line of sight to Sindragosa in this phase if she's not doing the frost bombs?
This phase is an endurance check. While it may eventually be possible
Oh, you reset your arcane buffet stacks with it. I see, okay.
to damage their Sindragosa and simply ignore the mechanics, it is better first handled as a sustained encounter. Be sure everyone is watching their debuffs, both for backlash effects and for the arcane buffet. A second tank is needed during this time to allow arcane buffet resets on the tank. Otherwise, you will have to use cooldown rotations to mitigate the increase.
Okay, so you need 2 tanks for this, but it seems like you only need 2 tanks for phase 3. You don't need a second tank for phase 1 and 2, right? Because the tank needs to reset his stacks in phase 3. So I wonder if there's a way to have like a feral tank or something bop it off. Maybe. It would be nice to 1 tank this. I thought Sindragosa was a 1 tank fight, but it sounds like it's a 2 tank fight. Maybe like a feral can tank long enough with cooldowns to let the main tank reset his stuff so you don't actually have to have someone in full tank gear or something like that. It would be nice to not have to have 2 tanks here.
Increasingly large frost breath hits.
Cows Magoo, hell yeah. Cows go moo, hell yeah.
Place the Ice Tomb players in 2 locations, one generally in front of the ranged group, and one a safe distance away in case the previous Ice Tomb wasn't broken in time. Range damage, as well as any melee who needed to reset their arcane buffet, are responsible for breaking down the Ice Tombs as quickly as possible. As long as the tomb lasts long enough to block 1 pulse of arcane buffet, it will allow the debuff to reset. Everyone is
It's only 1 pulse that needs to reset. Okay. So that's not so bad. You just need to make sure that the pulse goes out while you're behind the thing and then you can move out.
responsible for keeping
These are like old school weak orders.
their own debuff in check. Resetting at least every other Ice Tomb is ideal.
Yeah, the question will be how often do you need to reset your debuff? They're using a feral. I mean, like, couldn't a DK eat more than that with AMS, IBF? I feel like AMS and IBF is like, it's always up. AMS is at least it's 45 seconds or something, right?
Overall, the encounter is very similar to Saffron until Phase 3. From that point, just dig in and work toward a slow, steady finish.
There's AMS.
Take your time and make the most of your attempts, and you'll be moving on to Lich King soon enough. If you'd like more information or clarifications, feel free to ask questions or add suggestions.
Let's use 0 hero ignore mechanics again, just not sure when will be doable. Yeah, it probably makes sense early on to lust Phase 3. Although, to be fair, you're not really racing anything. You have the ability to reset your stacks, right? So it's like Phase 3, you're not really trying to skip anything. Phase 1 and 2, you can skip an air phase by lusting off the rip, so it might be worth to just lust off rip. But yeah, it looks like a fun fight. A lot of moving around, a lot of managing of those frost tombs, your personal responsibility of managing your debuff, not letting it stack too high. You're gonna get really mad at casters that blow up in the raid. Let's look at the heroic mechanic differences. Heroic, you're racing against air phases. Are you? Phase 2 air phase, frost bomb damage is increased to I will kill you, and in 25 man,
XP.
6 players. Okay. Tips and tricks. In normal mode, up to 8 stacks of Mystic Buffet can be tolerated. Who cares? Wearing some frost resist gear increases survivability. No one's going to do that. During Phase 3, healers can try to find a place behind an ice tomb where they have no loss to the boss, but can see and heal a tank. That's cool. It's important to note that when she pulls all raid members to her, she begins casting Blistering Cold as soon as the pull begins, not when you land at the foot of the boss. For this reason, the closer you are to the boss, the more time you will have to turn around in midair and get out of range before the AoE takes effect. This is very important in heroic mode, as any damage taken from Blistering Cold is essentially unsurvivable. Wait, what? The closer you are to the boss, the more time you will have to turn around. Oh, okay, so you're incentivized to not be super far away. I wonder if hunters can disengage as soon as they're yoinked. Like, will they change direction in midair? Like, if you get pulled and then you just disengage, are you good? They can. That's cool. That'll be fun to min-max that. Also, if you're really good, when she pulls you, you trap and then you disengage out so that you don't even have to worry about it. You use it as a trap opportunity. That's cool. Okay. Sindragosa seems really fun. I'm really excited to try this fight. Don't give hunters secrets away. Yeah. Warlock's can instant teleport. Sure. Do you think they're going to do something about tier acquisition? I don't know, Medi. Hunter Parks Guide, our guild is PTRing this now on a private server. We don't use the extra steps on the other side. Sure. Exiled. We'll see what ends up being meta. So this is the final, and I would argue the most difficult boss we will have faced to this point in the game. I remember walking into Sunwell and being like, oh, it's going to be really hard. And it was hard. Muru was hard. We had 30 plus pulls on Muru, 32 pulls for our first Muru kill. We had 10 to 15 for Kill Jaden. We had way too many on Yogg Zero, like an embarrassing amount. This one is going to be maddening. A lot of people will not get Heroic Arthas on 0%. That's just gonna be a thing. That's gonna be okay. That'd be fun. I'm nervous that a lot of fusion raids aren't gonna get Arthas at 0%. GDKBs are gonna struggle with Arthas at 0%.
Raid guide.
Let's give it a go. There's 5 phases in this fight, and then there's a heroic phase 2, if I'm right.
My name is Darksend, and in this video, I will be covering our strategy for the 25-man version of the Lich King encounter. This fight consists of 3 main phases.
Is that loud enough?
2 transitional phases occurring at 70 and 40%.
Okay.
We used 2 tanks, and our healers were 2 paladins, a druid, a shaman, and 2 priests. 1 discipline, and 1 holy.
So they 6 healed. We'll probably end up 5 healing. If they 6 healed, we'll probably 5 heal. But we'll see. There's a lot of argument also for 2 disc priests on this fight because of Defile, which we'll get into why later.
The most important thing about Phase 1 is how you handle the necrotic plague.
Infest, yes.
By using this strategy, we never got a 3rd shambling. You completely ignore the ghouls and the shamblings, and focus all DPS on Lich King to push him as fast as possible to 70%. The ghouls will die either to normal melee AoEs such as Whirlwind, or as fodder for the off-tank stacking up the plague. Our off-tank was a Death Knight,
15-minute enrage timer, that's so dope.
and was death gripping the shamblers to himself. But if you did not have a Death Knight tank, make sure he gets MD'd to avoid shockwaving the raid while positioning. We assigned our hunters to watch for enrages, and having 2 hunters is part of what makes this strategy work as well as it does. Assign 1 to the first one, and 1 to the second one.
So they're ignoring shamblers, which we might not be able to do, and they're tranking them. They enrage, I guess.
A rogue with anesthetic poison will work as well. They need to be careful of shockwave, and it's not as efficient. Start with the entire raid almost stacked on Lich King, with the shambling being tanked away. Once two...
They need to get the stacked necrotic and they die super fast? Yeah. Let's just pull this up so I have it. Alright. So phase 1, okay, so there's a necrotic plague. Infects the target with a deadly plague, causing 50,000 shadow damage every 5 seconds for 15 seconds. If the target dies, or the effect expires, this effect will gain an additional stack and jump to a nearby unit. The 15-second timer is refreshed after each jump. If the effect is dispelled, it will lose a stack and jump to a nearby unit in a 10-yard distance. If there's no target, the plague will be removed completely. When the effect jumps, the Lich King's power will increase. So what you do with this is you get diseased, you run over to the Shambler thing, right? And then you cleanse it, and it will jump to the Shambler itself. And then it will kill the Shambler over time. That's cool.
People successfully get a plague on the shambling, we had all the new ones ran out of the raid and get dispelled, as the plague will be removed completely if no one is within 5 yards at the time of the dispel. Have the off-tank grab ghouls only until the second shambling spawns, to help build up the stack.
Have the off-tank grab ghouls only until the second shambling spawns, okay.
Once the second one does spawn, however, you want to keep all ghouls as far away from the off-tank position as possible. This will ensure the plague will bounce back and forth only between the two shamblers. If DPS is good enough, they will die by killing themselves just before 70% or just after 70%.
Phase 1 seems pretty short.
Infest, we had our Discipline Priest shielding as many people as possible. We then had the Druid and the Shaman topping up the melee.
Okay, so Infest is very important. It deals a lot of shadow damage to everybody within 50,000 yards. In addition, targets will take more shadow damage until they're healed to 90%. So if you have a powered shield, Infest will just land on you, consume the shield, and then disappear. But if you don't have powered shield on you, it will do more damage over time and you need to heal the fuck out of it. So the goal, and one of the reasons that people say maybe 2 Disc Priests could be worth it, is you want to get powered shields on the entire raid so that when Infest goes out, it's essentially invalidating the mechanic. Very cool ability. It's reminiscent of Algalon. You got to get the whole raid shielded and then you pop it. 1 disc is enough? Yeah, that's I have a feeling that'll be true. But people argue that maybe 2 could be worth it. Okay, here we go.
And a Holy Priest.
10k damage. Okay, so hopefully it's enough to pop a shield, but not enough damage that you drop below 90%.
The ranged.
Is it random or does he cast it? He casts it. How can you could power shield the whole raid? Yo, sure. Is it on a timer? I don't know if it's on a timer. Deals a gajillion shadow damage to everybody within. In addition, the targets will take increasing. That seems like it's too much damage raged. 20k damage to the whole raid? Seems like an extra large amount of damage. It's 20k? So then powered shield isn't enough. I mean, a shield's not 20k. I guess you could resist some of it. Shadow AM is needed. All right, whatever. We'll talk about it later. But either way, you powered shield the whole raid.
Stacking damage buff the Lich King gains when the plague jumps is much scarier than a 10-man. I needed to start using cooldowns as early as 15 stacks, and they got really scary around 20. At 72%, have your raid move to the edge and be ready for the transition phase.
Alright, 72%.
Make sure to dispel the off-tank before he runs back in to remove the disease that killed the last Shambler. Diseases will no longer happen for the rest of the fight once that one is removed.
Alright, so the disease mechanic is just phase 1, so that's not that big a deal.
Spreading out is very important for this phase, both to help mitigate the Frost Orb's AoE and the pain and suffering. The main tank should be getting the first Raging Spirit, but the off-tank needs to get the next 2.
So a Raging Spirit spawns, it copies somebody's character, and they run towards the raid.
This is so that the main tank is clean when it comes time to pick the Lich King back up. If possible, try to face them into the middle, so melee do not have to worry about getting silenced, or taking that damage. It also makes it easier if a melee gets the next Raging Spirit to have a clean spot to drop it off.
It looks like they're kind of clumped in little groups, like one here, one here, one here, so that the whole raid doesn't eat that cone.
Assign 2 people to the orbs, and after a minute when Lich King quakes, pay attention to them. You don't want to run into any of them that aren't dead yet and get thrown 90 yards off the platform.
Do these lines matter? Like, are you not allowed to stand on these lines? It's just graphic? Okay.
I was always given a cooldown as we were running back in, usually a Guardian Spirit. It is very silly to wipe here because your tank just gets one shot running back in.
Gotta precast inspiration and shit on your tank, like a good healer should.
There will likely be 2 Raging Spirits still up, although one will probably be almost dead at this point. Focus on them until the Valkyries come up. In 25 men...
Okay, so they summon these Valkyries, they pick someone up, and they fly them to the outside of the room and try to throw them off. So you have to kill the Valkyrie before they reach the edge, and then chuck them.
There are 3 of them.
Do they get
So
slowed
make sure
by
to
Frost
assign
Trap?
redundant slows to each one of them
okay.
in case the slower gets picked up. Ideally...
Does Warlock TP work here? Valks are stunned by a Holy Wrath rotation? That's cool. So Warlock TP, what will happen? Does the guy get yoinked with wherever you go? You wait till he drops you? That's so cute. So he's like, I love that. So he's like, later, bitch. And then he's like, I'm going to go fly home because I did a great job. And the Warlock's like, haha, yoink. That's cute. I love that.
Depending on how good or bad you are with Defile, the tank should be dead center of the platform, with the entire raid stacked up right behind him.
There's Defile. So Defile is a mechanic that they use a lot in retail now. It spawns this shadow pool, and if anybody is standing in it, it gets bigger. And the bigger it gets, the more people it eats up. The more people it eats up, the bigger it gets. You just gotta not get anywhere close to it.
The reason you do this is because the Valkyries will always fly to the nearest edge. By controlling where you stand, you can ensure they all fly together, which not only helps a great deal as far as damage goes, allowing melee to cleave them, but it also ensures that AoE slows such as Piercing Howl or Desecration will always be able to hit all 3 of them.
Here comes the Valks.
Phase 2 is all about properly
And
handling
they're gonna
Defiles
run-
and making sure the Valkyries are slowed.
So you don't want the Valkyries to run through the Defile. That seems very important because... Oh yeah, I see. Wait, holy shit, that's bad timing. So the Valkyries land and then the Defile happens like at the same time.
Phase 2 is all about properly handling Defiles and making...
Yeah, that's real bad. I could totally see that being a problem. So then how do you avoid a bad Defile? Because Defile happens under a player. So then you'd have to position the raid.
Making sure the Valkyries...
Watch the clip real fast. Yeah, that looks like a GG. The whole platform's Defile, so you lose. Save boots. Let's look how fast it happened too. Okay, so Defile goes out. If you're picked up and the Defile's underneath you, does it count as you being on top of the Defile? It doesn't. I mean, these guys are just going too slow. Your melee can't DPS, sure. I see. All right, well, that's definitely an interesting little wrinkle. I hadn't considered that as a problem. So let's kind of go back and see how they handle it. So the Valkyrie will go to whatever edge is closest to them, right?
Phase 2 is all...
So they're all kind of stacked, and Defile will go out essentially on the stack, and they all have to move out of the Defile as fast as they can.
Handling Defiles and making sure the Valkyries are slowed. The person getting targeted by Defile is rarely the reason it...
Does he target somebody with Defile? So you can, and he casts it, so you can see who's got it. So that person has to move. So I get to yell at somebody. Yes! I get to yell at somebody for not moving out, is what you're telling me. All right, very great. I'm excited to yell at somebody. Orange, it'll probably be you. Okay. Airhorn, Weakcore, Ink, yes, exactly. So that's not so bad. It's a 2-second cast, so you have enough time to run out, drop it, and not fuck the raid.
The person getting targeted by Defile is rarely the reason it will grow. What normally happens is, the people
This is really smooth. They've got nice cleaving going.
around them don't know which way they're going to run, so instead of running away, they run with them for a few steps. And by
You
that,
can give Defile to someone who's getting Valked at the same time, and in that situation, you recast the Defile to someone else in rare cases. What do you mean, M? Like, he'll start giving Defile to someone, they'll get Valked, and then he'll recast it? Blank, yeah, sure. Okay. I kind of see what you're saying. Okay.
then it's too late and it's already grown at least a tick. Because of this, we used a general strategy of teleporter to throne, as far as positions for dropping defiles.
So he's moving the boss around so as to... I see what's happening. So, no, I heard about that, cows. Okay, so he's moving the boss around to stack the raid close to where he wants the Valks to go. So now he's telegraphing the Valks to go to this edge. And they're going to move the defile here or whatever away from here so that they don't run through the defile. I see.
A defile in the middle could have devastating results if a Valkyr doesn't get slowed.
Okay, so the defile got dropped here. This is probably not the best positioning, right?
Because the person's picked up. Or if a stunner is picked up.
Cows, what is this? Oh yeah, I've seen this video. You could drop defile off. But you don't want to do this. But generally, you're gonna be in the center of the thing, aren't you? Like, aren't you gonna be towards here because this is where you don't want the Valks to be? Oh, it's phase 3. Okay, if it's phase 3, then sure. I don't know. I don't know phase 3 yet, but I'm just saying, if you're dealing with Valkyrie, you don't want to be over here. You want to be in the center so that you have more time to kill them as they go to the thing. We'll get to phase 3 and then we can talk about it. But yeah, this is cool as shit. I'm still not convinced that Marksman's gonna be the play, personally. That's fucking cool, though. For sure. Dropping defile outside the room is ideal. I bet it is. Marksman's definitely the play. I mean, we'll see. Where were we? Back to you.
Always be watching the cooldown, or have someone call out the cooldown for defile. And have the raid be pre-moving. Valkyr doesn't get slowed because the person's picked up.
Chad with the rocket boots.
Or if a stunner is picked up.
I feel like what should have happened here was that whoever dropped the defile off should have gotten a little further away. Like here or here. So that they didn't have to move the boss. But I would probably have preferred not to have to move so the Valks can go here instead of where they end up going here.
A defile in the middle could have devastating results if a Valkyr doesn't get slowed because the person's picked up. Or
But
if a stunner is picked up.
Where it ended up being, they made the right call, right? So
Always be watching the cooldown, or have someone call out the cooldown for
this druid is playing with fire. These guys are playing with fire.
The cooldown, or have someone call out the cooldown for defile, and have the raid be pre-moving. As long as a Valkyr is not about to spawn, there is no reason people should be anywhere near the middle when the cooldown of defile ends. Should a raid healer get picked up, or people move the wrong way around defile and get separated from raid healers, Infest can start to tick rather hard.
Okay, that's a good defile.
Make sure people use
that's ideal right there. Away from where the boss is. That's a good defile.
pelt stones. Because of its mechanic, the longer it ticks, the harder it is to remove.
Yeah, Tina, that's gonna happen. There's gonna be a lot of funny defile.
We decided using a taunt rotation for Soul Reaper would just make things much easier in the long run. It also has the added benefit of letting you save cooldowns, say, in case a tank healer gets picked up.
So Soul Reaper is a single target attack that Arthas does. It's like 80,000 damage or something, unresistible. You gotta use a cooldown on it. You can tank swap. You could do whatever. DKs are probably the best tank for Arthas. We'll see.
Instead of being forced to use them at specific times, and then not having them when you actually need them.
Defile starts casting.
Specific times, and then not having them when you actually
Everybody starts moving away from the raid. They all spread out.
need them.
And then it picks this guy. That's cool.
More often than not, Soul Reaper will line up with
It's 70k shadow damage after 5 seconds and increases Lich King's haste by 100% for 10 seconds. That's gnarly.
File.
So what I'm going to do as a Disc Priest when I see Soul Reaper happening is I'm going to Power Shield the tank. I'm going to palm him. And the second Soul Reaper lands, I'm dumping Penance into him. Dump all over him. Big old dumpies.
This can be very disastrous if you get separated from your healers.
Infest is still happening. That's not a big deal. You can still Power Shield the raid. You just don't Power Shield the tank until you cast it right after the file. You don't want the shields to pop. You know, I hear what you're saying. I don't know yet, Medi. I'd have to fuck with it, but it sounds like I see what you're saying. It's Algalon-esque. Yeah, you want Infest to pop shields. Okay, it's gonna be a fun fight for Disc. I'm very excited. I'm very excited. All right, so he's at 48. Lich King Heroic melee is tank for about 50k. Sheesh. There's Defile. The raid's moving. Raid dropped it off. So they're still doing Valkyr. They're doing Defiles. It's a lot. Oh, that guy got really unlucky. Did you see that? Look at this guy. This guy out here. This tree shouldn't be out there. It's a Warlock? I don't know. Oh, yeah, there you go. Nice. Cool, he did it. That's cool. Cool to see it. So the Warlocks can kind of fuck off then. They don't have to worry about positioning on this fight. It's almost better that they're at the edge because they can drop Defile off on the side. So, like, Warlocks are going to be really good for this fight. Like, the odds of a Warlock getting picked is pretty high. If you're bringing 5 Warlocks or whatever. That's like, 1 in 3, and then there's 5 out of 25 Warlocks or something. Yeah, totally niche. Your Warlocks are not going to want it to happen because then they're not parsing perfectly, right? But that's going to be good. Can you see how many Warlocks? I see 3, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. For sure, Nesby.
At around 42%, start watching the cooldown on Valkyrs. Stop all DPS.
2 is standard? Well, maybe not for a first clear. Maybe long term.
Until the next one comes out, and as soon as they die, push immediately. It is true that should the people get picked up, they will safely be dropped on the now raised platform, but it is also true that even standing on the very edge, you will take ticks of Remorseless Winter. This, combined with any pain and suffering ticks or orbs.
So can you DPS him during this phase? Is he hittable?
Flashes.
Mages can? What about hunters?
Just makes it safer to wait. Everyone
I guess you've got work to do on orbs
pushing,
and shit still.
Because there is a delay in the platform coming back up. Again, just like the previous
Hunt's
transition
empty,
phase,
okay.
Make sure to stay spread out to avoid pain and suffering stacking too high, and splashes from the orb. This is the optimal time for Bloodlust or Heroism, because this time around, there will be 4 Raging Spirits instead of just 3. We have the off-tank get the 1st, 3rd, and 4th, while the main tank picks the 2nd one up.
Bloodlust the ads.
Ideally, the first 2 should be dead before the transition ends, with the 3rd one at about 75%. The 4th one will...
What do the Raging Spirits do? Raging Spirit. Silencing cones. You just have to face them away from the raid. Targets of Raging Spirits at 5 seconds before the ad spawns. Raging Spirits melee very hard and possess a frontal cone area silence ability. They must be killed quickly so that only 1 is up in phase 2. Pain and suffering is a stacking dot that's applied to random raid members. It spreads to nearby players, so the raid should spread out some.
Always spawn after the transition.
Okay, so it looks like they have 3 stacks. A melee stack and 2 range stacks, like the healers over here or something.
Phase ends. The tank really needs help to pick this one up, as they'll almost definitely be silenced.
Oh my god, a fight longer than 10 minutes. That's crazy. 2 lusts in 1 fight. I think that's probably what's going to end up happening. All right, that's part 1. Part 2 is 7.5 minutes. Here we go.
If due to the Soul Reaper rotation, you are not the last tank in the previous phase, make sure to open up with a taunt.
Okay, so Arthas is at 40%. They did a transition phase with the Raging Spirits. Boom.
2 Ragings by themselves are almost enough to kill a tank. They will almost certainly die if the Lich King...
So 1 tank has the 2 leftover Raging Spirits, and the other tank has the Lich King. There's going to be a lot of tank healing right
is
here.
on them on top of that.
And Heroic's phase is very
You
different.
should tank the Ragings by the throne, and the Lich King should be over by the teleporter. Since the Valkyr are gone, you should be as close to the edge as possible, and as spread out as possible.
So he summons Vile Spirits, and the raid's spread out.
As soon as you see him cast Vile Spirits, you should move completely to the other side of the platform.
There's a Defile.
We continue a taunt rotation for Soul Reaper. Part of the point of this is, the tank that has just been taunted off of can go around taunting the Vile Spirits that are high health still, and blow them up away from the raid.
So how do the Vile Spirits work? Vile Spirits move toward raid members and explode when they reach the target. The most obviously to deal with them is AoE before they start moving. Fire Mages, Shadow Priests, Affliction, Warlocks, and Moonkins are very effective at this. But only if the spirits are grouped closely together. The spirits move very quickly at the start, but slow down over time. The snares are helpful. They hover for 20 seconds. Okay, so you want to blow them up before they even start coming down. Okay.
An added benefit to spreading out is the Defile, even though you have more
So the raid moves away from where he spawns them?
To work with because you don't have to worry about Valkyrs.
You don't kill them? Oh, the tank just lets them pop on him? Oh, okay.
Can still be a problem.
Looks like they're DPSing some of them.
This phase is extremely long, but extremely easy, as long as you keep the person with Harvest Soul alive. For the inside, make sure to interrupt the channel by any means possible, But if you don't have an interrupt, it can be dispelled off of Tyrannus.
He says the inside. He's talking about in Frostmourne, right?
The only class that should really have a problem with this is a Night Elf Boomkin, as War Stomp will work for Tauren Boomkin. Hunters should
We're
be
not
marks for
seeing that
Silent
right
Shot,
now.
and Warlocks should summon a Fell Hunter with Heroism at the
Okay.
40% phase.
So, all right, well, let's just go to the heroic guide. Where's Crips? It's right here.
That you could kill him seconds after you go into the phase. As the third phase begins, you will have about 10 uneventful seconds of DPSing down the remaining Raging Spirits until he sucks you in with his
Okay.
Raging Spirit at the end. Second transition phase is about to begin. You want to have your raid on the edge so they can jump on the ice just as it spawns to avoid any damage they would have taken otherwise. The second transition phase is the same as the first transition phase, except that you get the one extra Raging Spirit at the end. Your goal by the end of this transition phase is to have 2 out of the 4 dead, and the third one at extremely low life that you could kill him seconds after you go into the third phase. As the third phase begins, you will have about 10 uneventful seconds of DPSing down the remaining Raging Spirits until he sucks you in with his Group Harvest Soul ability. At this point, your raid has been teleported to what I refer to as the down phase. During the down phase, your job is to stay alive for 40 seconds. There are 2 things that are going to try to kill your raid members. Number 1 are these bombs that fall from the sky. They mostly...
Okay, so as far as I'm aware, you just have to turn your camera so you can see above you and below you, and then you just avoid the things as they fall, right?
Spawn on players, but not always. Sometimes they are random. They take a couple seconds to hit the ground, and when they hit the ground, they do damage in a radius that is usually enough to kill a player. The second thing that will kill you are these spirits, which resemble Vile Spirits from the normal mode encounter of Lich King. They explode when they reach a player, but they are very easily killed in the down phase. They only have a couple thousand HP.
Okay, so as a ranged DPS, your job here is to kill the spirits. As a melee, your job is to guide the range so they don't have to think about where they're standing and can just focus on killing shit. Does that make sense?
And your ranged DPS should be constantly tabbing and using instant
Shoutout pretty
abilities.
takes care of it.
With enough players helping out, these spirits do not pose much of a threat to the raid. The first thing you do when your raid is sent to the down phase is mark your most capable player and have every member in the raid stack on that player. That player should then lead the raid continuously into positions that do not have any bombs on them. If any member dies during this down phase, you will enrage the Lich King upstairs, and you most likely will wipe because of it. Every down phase is absolutely identical, and with enough practice, your stack target should be able to continuously find good areas for your raid to move in.
Okay.
So your raid has survived the 40 seconds of the down
Okay, so if we have 40 seconds and a 15-minute fight is a long amount of time.
phase, and you're now sent into the up phase. The first up phase is going to be different than all the other ones. The primary focus for your raid during the
First time coming up is different
phase
than all the others.
is going to be different than all the other ones. The primary focus for your raid
Finishing the
during the
Raging
first up
Spirit.
phase is to kill any remaining Raging Spirits. When you're doing this off to one side of the platform, you want your tank to tank Lich King on the exact opposite side of the platform with healers there. Once Lich King casts Vile Spirits, the main tank should move Lich King to where the raid is. While he is doing so,
Why?
a hunter who is marked should drop a frost trap in between the Lich King and the raid.
Oh, because he starts casting it.
The Lich King should run through it to activate it. A few seconds later, the Vile Spirits should be coming towards the raid. Your raid should be stacked so they're all going in the same direction. If you have killed all your Raging Spirits, your off-tank should intercept these Vile Spirits with a cooldown. If you have not, you can use the Dispersion from a Shadow Priest, plus the bubble from perhaps a Ret or a Holy Pally to intercept these particular Vile Spirits.
Okay.
Soon after you have dealt
30k shadow damage resistible. That's not so bad for a tank. Oh, each. That could be kind of a lot.
with those Vile Spirits,
Hey, Pep's like, get down, Mr. President.
see that Lich King has casted a new batch. However, this
What's up,
batch will
Joe?
not come down before Lich King casts his Harvest Soul. So your goal is to get Lich King to the center of the room as fast as you can after he has casted the second set. At that
Okay, so one set of Harvest Soul happens. As you're killing the Raging Spirit.
point, you will experience a down phase. Once you have completed the down phase, you're going to go into the up phase. Every
Oh
up
my god, was that a loading screen?
phase after this point is going to be absolutely the same. The first thing that happens when you go into an up phase is there's going to be a defile. So your raid spreads out.
Oh, this looks so much fun. There's so much minutia in this. I love it.
Your hunter, however, needs to drop a frost trap on the Lich King as fast as he can. These two things need to happen immediately. Once your raid has dealt with a defile, they're going to run to the edge that is opposite where the Vile Spirits from the previous up phase are. Your raid needs to stack tightly on this position because the Vile Spirits will come quite soon, and your off-tank and whoever else should deal with them as fast as they can. Once all the previous Vile Spirits have been killed, you'll notice that Lich King has already spawned a new set of Vile
Oh
Spirits.
my god, that's a lot of Vile Spirits.
And you need your raid to go to the opposite side as fast as they can. Once that second set of Vile Spirits has been dealt with, you want to move Lich King to the center of the room and prepare for another down phase.
Gotcha.
This kind of up phase will repeat itself again and again until Lich King will enrage. Your goal in phase 3 is to have a sense of consistency that will allow everyone in your raid to stay alive until the very end. If you meet this, you will not have any DPS problems and you will complete the encounter successfully.
Cool. Okay, so you have to, for the first one, you take the Lich King far, you kill the Raging Spirit, the Vile Spirits spawn. As the Vile Spirits are spawning and he's channeling, you run towards the raid, well, maybe, depending on strategy. The off-tank, ideally, who is finishing the Raging Spirit, runs towards the Vile Spirits and soaks, or somebody else. The Raging Spirit dies. The Vile Spirits die. He phases you. Then you go down, you do the down phase, you come back up. He starts casting Vile Spirits again. You drag him to one side. So as you come out, everybody has to spread because the file's going out. He's finishing casting Vile Spirits. You drag him to the edge of the room. You soak Vile Spirits. He casts Vile Spirits again. You drag him to the center of the room. You soak Vile Spirits. And then you down phase. And you just do that till the boss dies. Or you die, because he's going to kill you at 10%. Okay, very cool. Till 10% and then it's over, yeah. Can't wait to wipe a trillion times? Yeah, or you hit enrage. If you hit 10% and he enrages, do you lose? Or do you win at 10%, no matter what? If you hit 10%, you win. Very, very cool. If you cast Fury of the Frostborn, you win. Okay. Very, very cool. Okay. All right. Well, that is the end of our little series, guys. And we're going to have the loot prio guide coming out soon. I'll show you guys the start of it. Here we go. Here's the loot prio guide for phase 4. Already coming together. All the physical loot is in. The caster loot is starting to come in. We're just finishing building it. And then I'm also going to have boss guides for all this stuff. I'm going to have assignment sheets thanks to Raged for all this stuff. I'm going to have weak aura guides that I didn't do last time, but I'm going to do one this time with Foji. We're going to make a little video and kind of go over his weak aura suite for ICC. PTR is at some point soon, so come hang out for that. It'll be a lot of fun. If you guys haven't followed, please give me a follow. It helps me a bunch. Thank you so much.